Good evening. I'd like to call this regular business meeting to order and ask the treasurer to call the roll.
President Baker?
Present.
Mr. Cole?
Present.
Ms. Gibbs?
Here.
Ms. Hudson? Mr. Paretti?
Here.
Ms. Reyes?
Here.
Vice President Stewart? You have a quorum, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. I'd like to ask Ms. Gibbs to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now, if there are no additions, deletions, or changes to the agenda, I will now entertain a motion that it be adjourned as, or excuse me, accepted as presented. I'm ready.
I move that we adopt the agenda as presented.
Very good. Moved and seconded.
Ask them to call the roll.
Okay. Mr. Treasurer?
President Baker?
Yes.
Mr. Cole?
Yes.
Ms. Gibbs?
Yes.
Mr. Paretti?
Yes.
Ms. Reyes?
Yes.
That motion carried.
Thank you very much. We do not have any speakers this evening, so we'll move on from public comment. And I believe now we are going to ask the superintendent to provide his report.
Thank you, and good evening, President Baker, members of the board. My comments at the beginning of your meetings have become regular reminders of our spirit of success, which is that new sense of purpose, pride, and achievement echoing across our district. Every 2 weeks, I have the great opportunity to update you on some great examples of this spirit. And later tonight, as we review my performance over the past year in executive session, you'll hear more about the tremendous achievements and accomplishments the district has had for the benefit of our students, in partnership with our teachers and staff, and in serving our community and our stakeholders. So if you'll indulge me, let me just share some of those highlights now. We've increased pre-kindergarten access with more than 1,700 seats so far this year that are filled, and more to come. We've also increased the amount of state and local grant funding devoted to pre-kindergarten experiences. We've improved third grade reading and increased our matriculation rate for third graders moving to fourth grade to 92%. We've doubled the number of students enrolled in the College Credit Plus program and helped seniors earn more than $42 million in scholarships and grants. We opened the district's first Columbus Gifted Academy and boosted the amount of services provided to our growing number of gifted and talented students. We launched the Health Sciences Academies in partnership with the Partners Achieving Community Transformation, or PACT, and the Ohio State University Wexner Medical Center, part of that overall transformation of Columbus's Near East Side. We added 512 new certificated hires and 76 teachers hired specifically for our priority schools. We've decreased the number of expulsions and decreased the number of suspensions for disruptive behaviors. We've improved from an F to a B on our state report card for career education, and we've seen the largest number of students ever enrolled in our Fort Hays and downtown high school career programs over the past 5 years. Our Central Enrollment Center, which has become a one-stop customer-focused model of efficiency, enrolled 14,000 students this past year. Together, we've revised the district policies and administrative guidelines and developed a comprehensive, transparent budget process that's been spotlighted by national organizations. We improved our data collection procedures and added attendance and student information specialists in school buildings to proactively assist our secretaries, received commendations from both the Ohio Department of Education and the Ohio Auditor of State on our improved data collection. We've deepened our relationships with our key community partners that include the Columbus Metropolitan Library, Nationwide Children's Hospital, Columbus State, the City of Columbus, and the new Future Ready Columbus. And we've created a continuous community conversation by improving our outreach and communication with our stakeholders online, on social media, and very soon, spoiler alert, through a special application on your smartphone. Yes, this is an exciting time of historic change for Columbus City Schools, and that spirit of success is indeed growing stronger each day. I look forward to sharing more details in our conversation later this evening. Now let me switch gears to spotlight 3 important updates for the board. The first is an update on the conversations regarding Nationwide Arena. Overall, we've been pleased with the negotiations that we've been having with the Franklin County Convention Facilities Authority, the new owners of the arena, and with their commitment to do what's right for our district, for the community, and ultimately for the students and the families we serve. I'm going to ask Chief Legal Counsel Larry Braverman to talk about a proposal approved by the Convention Authority today on a payment in lieu of agreement.
Thank you, Dr. Good. President Baker, members of the board, Treasurer Bahorek, Internal Auditor Smith. As Dr. Good said, the Franklin County Convention Facilities Authority this morning did vote to give their director authority to enter into an agreement with the Board of Education in district regarding payments to the district in lieu of taxes. And in their resolution, they laid out the essential terms, which are first, during the term of the agreement, which would last as long as the Convention Authority operated the arena and had the tax exemption, that the district would be paid $586,000 per year. In addition, for each year of the agreement, the Convention Facilities Authority will make available to the district space, services such as technology equipment, setup, takedown, maintenance, all the other things that we would normally pay for. They will make that available to the district for free for up to 4 days for commencement exercises. And that will be each year. Now, in exchange, if the board approves the agreement, the board would indicate to the General Assembly its agreement with legislation that would have the effect of making the arena eligible for a tax exemption. Right now, we are working on nailing down the details, but we have an agreement, a tentative agreement in principle. We hope to have the written agreement completed in just a few days, and will likely, it is likely you will be asked to meet in a special meeting to consider the agreement and to vote on it. We would hope that would happen fairly soon, perhaps next Monday. In any event, I would ask you to confer with Mr. Benton to let him know your availability for that special meeting. At that time, you would be asked to take up the matter. We would have the agreement in front of you. And of course, would be happy then, as I am now, to answer any questions that you might have.
Are there questions for the superintendent or general counsel related to the tentative agreement in principle? Yes, Mr. Paretti?
It's more of a comment. I just look forward to the opportunity to see the language. This is very important. I'm glad that we've all been able to come to the table on this issue, because it is a lot of money, and educational services cost money. So I appreciate everyone's work and look forward to seeing it. Thank you.
Ms. Gibbs?
Well, thank you for that update. And to that point about educational services costing money, do we lose money on this agreement, or how does this fare with what we would normally get, or the valuation?
Board Member Gibbs, President Baker, members of the board, it has been reported in one of the stories that I read today that the taxes that would be generated from the arena would be $3 million a year. That number is perhaps illusory. In fact, it is illusory. It's based on a value of the arena that's currently being kept on the books of $144 million. If you'll recall, we discussed this issue back in November 17th, your November 17th meeting, and recall that back in 2007, I believe it was, the Court of Common Pleas in Franklin County held that the value of the building then was closer to $42 million, and it is highly unlikely that the value has gone up since then. If there were no agreement, basically two things could happen. One is, if the Convention Authority got its exemption, the district would get no revenue. So we are, in a very real sense, getting money that the district is getting money that it might not otherwise have. Even if an exemption were not granted, that $144 million amount would be subject to a challenge from the owner of the arena, which happens to be the Convention Authority now. And I think we've learned from experience that the process of litigating valuation issues is extremely expensive and extremely problematic for all involved. And it is, without being able to predict what value might ultimately be determined, it is highly likely that it would not be close to $144 million. The other thing this agreement would provide is certainty. It would provide a fixed amount of dollars to the district each year for as long as the Convention Facilities Authority owned and operated the arena. Buildings like this tend to go down in value over time. Property tax receipts from a building that's going down in value would lower over time. That won't happen so long as this agreement is in place. So I think in that regard, the district does well under the terms of the agreement. As you've seen, then it's a fair resolution of a difficult issue.
So just to reiterate, General Counsel, if anyone read or heard that the district would be losing $3 million a year based on this tentative agreement in principle, that was inaccurate, ultimately.
Yeah, that $3 million figure is simply not one that you can go to the bank on.
Right. Mr. Cole?
In your guesstimation, how inevitable is this tax exemption for the arena? Do you think that they'll be awarded it?
Well, President Baker, Board Member Cole, that will be a decision for the General Assembly. It will take the advice of all interested parties as it does, and then it will adopt the legislation as it sees fit. So while I am not a legislative aide or lobbyist by trade and would not want to hazard a guess on that, I simply can't say, but I would certainly think with all parties in agreement that it is likely that, having said that, that the General Assembly would look favorably on this legislation. What they would do without it, I can't predict.
Other questions from board members? All right. Mr. Treasurer, please note the arrival of Board Member Hudson. Thank you. All right. If there are no other questions on that particular issue, Mr. Superintendent?
Thank you, Council Braverman. Thank you also to Treasurer Stan Bahorek and to Dr. Eric Roush for their work on this effort associated with the Franklin County Convention Facilities Authority's request. The second, I want to talk about the dramatic shift that's occurred in our schools around technology. Technology is changing at a fast pace, and our students have become the natives who thrive on technology when it comes to learning. Tonight on the board's agenda is a request to purchase Chromebooks for our schools for mobile computing and for testing. As the wireless internet service is installed throughout the district, Chromebooks will allow for a true mobile experience for our students. And at the same time, our teachers are adopting digital textbooks and working to bring a blended learning approach to the classrooms. I am inviting Michelle Van Dyke, our Director of Technology, to offer the board a little show and tell on these technology tools.
Thank you, Dr. Good. President Baker, members of the board, what you have in front of you is the Chromebook that we are asking for approval to purchase for the district this year. So the big surprise was for when you open them, how quickly they come up. That's exactly what the student sees. So I'm not sure, does everybody have them open and you're on the sign-in screen? So if you're on the sign-in screen, there are a couple of things that, before you do anything, there are a couple of things that I just want you to look at. If you go to the bottom of at the very bottom, it says apps. And this is exactly why we kind of went the Chromebook cart way. If you click on apps, you'll see testing. There'll be air and map testing. Do you mind if I approach the table? Okay, yeah, so Yeah, exactly. That was why.
I was getting ready to get bored, actually.
I know. Okay. Okay, so let's close one of these. Do you mind if I close these? Everybody close them, right? Should we close? We're already on CNN over here.
Just log out. Just sign out. Sign out.
All right.
Go ahead and sign out.
All right. So we're gonna sign off on the guest right here. If you just move your mouse over there, and we're gonna exit guest. All right. So let's see. Are we all on the home screen? I'm going to log you out as guest right now.
Okay.
I'm so used to using a mouse that exit guest. All right. Okay, that's where we want to be. Okay, now I'll go back. So what the first thing I'm going to have you do, actually, I'll just look over her shoulder. The first thing I'm going to have you do is click on where it says apps. And this would be this was the first reason that we really looked into Chromebooks, because they're excellent for testing. So what you'll see there is the map testing for Chromebooks, and then you'll see AIR. If you click on AIR, this is a secure test site. So once the students have clicked onto this, they can't go anywhere else on the Chromebook. The whole rest of the Chromebook is locked. So there's no worry of them going back and forth and invalidating tests. So you can go ahead and close that one. And then, hold on. And then when you get back to the screen, you'll get the login. So the students have two opportunities to log into the Chromebook devices. The first way is on the login screen that you see in front of you, and that allows the student to go to a number of applications. Google Apps, they have everything available to them. Google Classroom, which a lot of teachers are using, a lot of classrooms are using at this point, which eliminates all paper in the classrooms, which is very nice. So teachers are starting to adopt that, but if they sign on as a guest, so where it says guest, if you click on, like you may have when you started. So that brings you just to a web browser. So now you're actually using it as a web device. So if you were using this as just a web device as a guest, it's a little slower than it would be if you sign on as an actual student using your student ID, because it's going through a lot more filtering. So the student ID will obviously go through our regular filtering, but if you're signing on as a guest, we're not really sure who you are, so we absolutely want to make sure that the filtering's a little bit tighter inside the school buildings. So that's really, I guess that's the power of them. As you'll see on the screen, I just happened to stop by an elementary school this morning because we wanted a picture of the kids actually using the devices. I walked into the room. They literally had them out in a minute. They were signed on to the application that the teacher asked them to sign on to, and they were able to compute, do whatever he was asking, and they were also able to learn at different levels. He had a couple different sites going at the same time. But the nice thing about this is, several months ago, you generously approved wireless throughout the district. So these are absolutely mobile, 100%. Right now, in some of the schools, as we're moving through the wireless process, they have to be with the cart because they have to have a wireless access point on them. So it's a little clunky. You can still do mobile computing, but now that the buildings are going to be all wireless, you could take 5 or 6 computers here, 5 or 6 computers there, and they're quick. These are just great devices for that kind of mobile learning, the collaboration that needs to go on in the classrooms to be prepared for the future. Is this the end-all device for every single thing in the district? Absolutely not. I think some of the things that you'll hear about these is that they can't do heavy computing. That's exactly right. They're not designed to be desktop publishers. They're not designed to do some of the interactive applications that we use in some of our special classes. So this is just one device in many when you're looking at a blended learning strategy that the students can actually roam with and feel very comfortable. They're very sturdy. They have a great price point so that we can afford to buy a lot of them for the district. But like I said, what initially drew us to this technology is the testing, because it is automatic. The testing browsers allow the students to get onto the test and not to go anywhere else on the computer, which it's been great. And I'm telling you, I have had a million calls. When is that going to be approved? When are we going to get those? And I said, we'll have them out before we do the spring testing because everybody loves them. So any questions about that?
Any questions from board members?
We have 3 devices. Like I said, these students were on in less than a minute. Yeah,
Mr. Cole?
Mr. Cole?
I just wanted to make a comment. I'm really excited to see how we've updated, and we've spent quite a bit of time modernizing the district, making sure that we have text available in our schools, making sure that we have blended learning tools like this that enhance and enrich learning in a classroom. I'm just really excited about the traction that we've made over this past couple of years and the direction we're still going. So thank you for your work. Thank you.
Well, I definitely appreciate you all, and it's fun to get to come in front of you and say, yay, something new. Because this really builds capacity for the school. This is a huge, huge step in the right direction. This really builds capacity in the classrooms, and there's just so much available to the students using these devices. So I appreciate it. I'll say I appreciate it now and hope that you vote yes on the consent agenda. Are there
Thank
any
you.
further questions? All right, I do have to take them back, though. Sorry. All right, thank you very much.
Mr. Superintendent?
Thank you to Michelle Van Dyke and to our operations team, Chief Operations Officer Maurice Oldham, for committing to keep our eyes on the next new technology tools so our students have opportunities to learn at that cutting edge, not behind it. Next, I want to talk about the importance of learning on a full stomach. This district took the historic step 2 years ago to offer breakfast and lunch at no charge to every student, not just some, but to all. We have seen gains each year in the number of students who rely on those meals, including recognizable growth in the number of students who take advantage of our breakfast program. Did you write that? Is that like a little play on words, recognizable growth for students participating in the lunch program, Scott? That's okay, I got it. Teach me to proof before I want to invite up Joe Brown, head of our food services, and Andrea Denning, the director of child nutrition at the Ohio Department of Education, to share a very significant award many of our schools are receiving.
I wanted to make sure that Joe came up here with me because I have something to say about him in a minute. But Dr. Good, thank you so much. And Board President Baker, appreciate being here, school board members. I'm Andrea Denning. I'm with the Ohio Department of Education. It's an honor to be here today to reiterate what Dr. Good had mentioned, celebrating the positives, which I think is really important here for Columbus City Schools. And it's something for you all to be very, very proud of. Our school food service director, Jo Brown, has, under his leadership and guidance, there are so many rules and regulations that you have to follow from the federal level to the state level to the local level. We did a count. We have about a $500 million budget. We, at the Ohio Department of Education Child Nutrition Office, have $500 million budget for all nutrition programs across the state. So the National School Lunch and Breakfast Program is a sliver of that, and we are proud to announce that Ohio is within the top 10 for every program that we do across the nation. So that's a pat on the back, because when you look at all of the states, Texas, New York, California, Ohio ranks within the top 10 as far as serving number of meals. So the fact that you all are doing and serving all kids within the district is a huge, huge positive. We know, we have statistics, we know that with kids go to school and they're hungry, they're not going to do well. We also know that this reduces, if they have a full breakfast, full stomach, they're going to do better in school, they're going to do less nurse visits, less disciplinary issues, they're going to be happier. And we've been able to do this with Jo Brown last year. I think you all had a 10% increase. Yay. That's fantastic. So it's an honor to be here. The Ohio School Breakfast Challenge was conducted through the USDA, the Ohio Department of Education, the American Dairy Association Mideast, Children's Hunger Alliance, Ohio Action for Healthy Children, and the School Nutrition Association of Ohio. We do this in partnership with all of these organizations so we can help advocate promoting breakfast and lunch in the schools and also help reduce those barriers so all children can be fed. Around the state of Ohio, 170 schools were recognized. Of those schools, 65 were Columbus City schools. So when we talk about the successes, Dr. Good, this is a big deal. We appreciate that. Thank you. schools that were recognized as either platinum, gold, silver, bronze, or rising star. Again, a success. Guess what Columbus City Schools have done? Platinum for 5. Yay! I want to just name off those 5 schools because we're very proud of them. Livingston Elementary, Ohio Avenue Elementary, Sullivan Elementary, Watkins Elementary, Windsor STEM Academy. We appreciate all the efforts made by Columbus City Schools to promote student nutrition. Again, it's a huge deal, so thank you. Good pat on the back. On behalf of the Ohio Department of Education, I'd like to maybe do a presentation with this banner, if that's okay. I'd like to present the banner to the Columbus City School Board, President Baker, and Superintendent Dr. Good. We are all about nutrition. We couldn't do it without you. Thank you. Thank you.
Are there questions from board members on that? Yes, Ms. Hudson?
Actually, congratulations and thank you. We had this Director Brown presented at the Finance Committee and did a fantastic job. It was a good deep dive that we enjoyed a couple weeks ago. I actually had a follow-up question on the Chromebook issue. I'm sorry, I'm still revving up, but I just wondered what's the timing to get the Chromebooks into the schools and how will that coincide with testing?
And while Michelle Van Dyke's making her way back up, just a little fun statistics that were shared at Audit and Accountability. There were 6,169,000 lunches served. I think that's so far this year. Is that right, Joe? Or was that last year? That was last year. Last year, okay. Oh, yeah, it is. I see that. And 4,330,000 breakfasts. That's a lot of meal preparation. So I hope if you weren't able to take advantage of seeing the food production facility, that sometime in the future you have that a chance to do that, because it's quite the operation. As is yours. Go ahead.
President Baker, to Board Member Hudson, I'm guessing that if we are able to put the order in, obviously, shortly after the board meeting, we'll have them in the February timeframe. So the manufacturer of the carts is a little different from the manufacturer of the actual Chromebook, so they come in at a little bit different time, but it usually takes about a month to 6 weeks to get those. They're immediate out of the box. All we do is add them to the management console and they're ready to go. So there's not a whole lot of prep time. It's just getting them in the carts and out, delivered to the schools. The vendor that we have our current contract with to purchase technology from have committed to making sure that they have extra resources available to help configure the carts, put the carts together, and get them delivered out to the schools as soon as we get them in. So they will be here. The time frame is to get them here before the March testing, the spring testing. I'm not sure if it starts in March, but in the spring testing.
And if I can, President Baker, and given that, so it sounds like we might be cutting it a little close, cart-wise. Is there, will we have sufficient time to test the Chromebooks and test the process, so the test isn't the first time we'll be using the Chromebooks?
Actually, we have about 3,500 to 3,600 Chromebooks out in the district now. Most schools are using them very readily. We do have some schools that haven't had the experience with them, but based on the experience they're having with current technology, it's very different inside a traditional PC or a laptop than it is to just be able to click on a secure browser. Like I said, that is entered into the image, and it's an automatic. Once it's entered into that, every time you sign on, it's right there for you. So it's very, very different. All of it's controlled through a management console, so we can update. If AIR or MAP makes a change to the test, we can do it immediately on the fly, and everything's updated. So it's very, very different technology, very much designed. The testing is very much designed to be done in this kind of a structure. So I feel comfortable, and I think based on the size of the order, I think that they're ready to get them out there because they really want school districts to see the benefits of having them. So I'm not really worried at all about having them here in time for testing. We've been making sure that we had them here to the board in time to get that taken care of.
Mr. Cole?
Mr. President, are we utilizing, this might be even a question for Mr. Brown as well, are we utilizing any of our locally economic disadvantaged enterprises, our vendors? Are we making use of that program with our technology piece and even with our food service?
Great question. Board Member Cole, we absolutely are using them. We require at least 20% of the installation cost. It's very difficult. Obviously, we're buying a commodity, so the carts and the laptops or the computers are obviously coming from a manufacturer. But yes, 20% of the installation cost. Actually, it ends up being a little bit more of that, but we require 20% of the installation cost. That means configuration, delivery, delivery to the schools, any setup that needs to be done. That's all figured into the cost of purchasing these.
Beautiful, thank you.
Other questions? Ms. Gibbs?
Yes, thank you. So how are you deciding which schools get the technology first? So is there a scale, or is it elementary, middle, high? How are we deciding who gets them first as opposed to
Right.
where they go next?
Board Member Gibbs, there really won't be it's not who gets them first. They'll actually be rolling out very quickly as soon as we get them. As soon as we get 30 in a cart, they'll be rolling out. So we expect to have them out to the entire district within probably 30 days of receipt. So it'll be as quick as we can get them out there. We do have a few schools, obviously, that wouldn't be the first on the list because they currently have all Chromebooks. So we have the Hubbard Mastery School, obviously. We have Stewart. We have a couple middle schools who have actually, a lot of schools, since even before we asked for this money, have purchased a ton of Chromebooks for their schools. So they'll be a little less anxious to get them. We want to make sure that we get them in the hands of people who don't have them because, like I said, this actually builds capacity for them. This is the easiest way to do a test is to bring 30 students through this process, one at a time. So we want to make sure. But like I said, prior to any of the testing started, it's our expectation that everybody will have their carts. So we have enough. I think we in the budget for this item, we have enough to buy 106 carts of 30. So everybody will have ample opportunity to have Chromebook carts before testing.
Ms. Gibbs?
And just one more question. And have the teachers or the people who will use these, have they already had the professional development on there? Have we provided for training and a way to bring everybody up to speed on how to use them?
Right. Board Member Gibbs, another good question. Kind of the glory of these is they require very little training, but when we do deliver the Chromebook cart, we make sure that we go through the whole process. If they want to do this at a staff meeting, that's fine. But really, you're logging on as yourself. It's a little different from the exercise we did here. You'll be logging in. The students are very familiar with their logons. It's the same as they use for logging onto a computer, any computer in the district. And the teachers, once they log on, it really works like a web browser for them. So as far as Google Classroom, we do have some teachers that are currently using that. We haven't, I think the curriculum department is going to work on a strategy for PD for that particular application. But as far as using the units, it's really just being able to use a web browser. If you've used a web browser, then you're able to use a Chromebook once you sign in.
Very excited about the introduction of this technology and it being available for everyone. I hope it really, really makes a huge impact. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Any more questions?
Any other questions? Thank you, Ms. Van Dyke.
Thank you.
Mr. Superintendent?
I think it's probably enough. I thank you for allowing me to share those updates.
Thank you very much. If there are no questions for the superintendent, then we'll move on, and I'll ask the treasurer, CFO, if he has anything he'd like to share.
I have no report for the board tonight.
Thank you. Internal Auditor Smith, is there anything you'd like to share with the board?
Thank you, President Baker. I do not have a update tonight.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, we'll move on to the consent agenda, and before we vote, or before we move to consider that, I would like to add, if there are no objections, approval of past meeting minutes from November 11th and November 17th. So if there's no objection, that approval will be added as item 16.3. All right. Now, the chair will entertain a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All right. Is there discussion on the consent agenda this evening? Yes, Mr. Paretti.
There's a few items that I just wanted sometimes just a quick description, if possible, legislation from the treasurer regarding the declaration of intent. If you could just maybe go over that real quick for the listening audience, Mr. Treasurer.
Certainly. President Baker and to Board Member Paretti, the resolution before you is an authorization to carry forward the board's allocation for qualified school construction bonds. That's a program wherein the federal government grants us a rebate, if you will, on the interest cost. So we're able to issue these qualified school construction bonds, affectionately known as Q-Scoobies in the industry. And it's just a reduced interest rate way of financing construction and renovation within the district. We were, as a district, awarded back in 2010, $39.2 million of an allocation. There remains about $29.4 million left. We just roll that over from year to year, but we have to formally do that in order to maintain our right to access that rebate, if you will, should we ever be in another position to issue bonds. We did issue bonds back in March of 11 for almost $9.9 million under this program.
Yes, sir.
A question not on this subject.
Yes, sir. Go right ahead, Mr.
Sure.
Paretti.
I just want to say, this Monday, I had the pleasure of going to the Food Production Center, and it was great. And I had a really good time with Joe and member-elect Eric Brown, and got to see some how our food comes in, how it goes out, the hard workers there. It was really terrific. And I also got to see the reason that we have some legislation on our agenda tonight dealing with the fixing some of the concrete floors. And I just want to say, I mean, I will always say that, and I've come to see it over the last few years of just how much our staff do with what we have, and how much it's really just amazing. And you know, we do need a new floor, and that's very, very clear. And I just wanted to voice that, and to also just voice that, when I was alluding to earlier, how much our staff really do care about our buildings and keep these things going for as long as they possibly can. And as we go into our this next year in the ad hoc committee, I'm really just looking forward to really seeing all of our facilities and seeing what we need to do moving forward with this district. So I'm very excited about that.
Thank you for sharing that. Absolutely. All right. I think I saw Ms. Hudson.
Thank you, President Baker. I'm wondering if the superintendent could comment a bit on 12.3, the supplemental health consent form. I know we talked about that earlier. I think it's a very exciting project. Anytime the district's involved with collaborating with other community services, and it makes it easier for families to get the services they need, all the better. So I'd like to see if you could talk about the culmination of this pretty large effort.
Thank you, President Baker. To Board Member Hudson, I always like to give credit where credit's due, and this evening we're fortunate Kate King is here, and one of our partners as well, and both dressed in cranberry.
Thank you, President Baker and board members. I'd like to introduce Nancy Bechtel. Nancy Bechtel is one of our partners from Columbus Public Health. She is the Assistant Health Commissioner and the Director of Nursing, and really helped us initiate this project. So I'm very glad to have her here. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much for this, and thank you so much for putting this together. I know the last time we talked about this was maybe last summer. Are we looking at methods or means by which we'll try to modernize the document, be able to make it something that is accessible online, to be able to be filled out online, saved, and even maybe eliminate this kind of annual kind of update, if you will. I don't know if that's possible or not, but from the modern aspect of it, how are we looking at that?
So President Baker, Board Member Cole, we have discussed that. Right now, we don't have the capability to do that online, but that is certainly always in our minds, and I'm sure I'll be working with Michelle Van Dyke in IT about that. I agree with you. We really want to move toward paperless and having things very accessible to our parents. The yearly update would be a consideration, although we really would like the consent form filled out every year because children change every year. And we want, Dr. Good's laughing, but they do, and we want the best possible health information for our providers to be able to treat children appropriately. Thank you.
Any other questions on that particular item?
No.
Mr. Superintendent, anything you'd like
President
to
Baker, I
share?
think it bears, and I love the notion of going online. One of the real challenges that we've discovered in our community with our partners is sharing databases of confidential information and how we establish that interrelational database without compromising security and privacy rights. And so it's a much, much bigger task than just turning it into either a PDF or actually an HTML online. There are all sorts of legal implications as well so that we protect both the HIPAA and the FERPA rights of our clients. So, but it's definitely the right challenge to take on. So it'll just be, this will be a long, protracted conversation, I'm anticipating. It has been relative to sharing student achievement data with many partners that wish to access that and use it to benefit services.
Yes, Ms. Reyes.
Thank you for saying that, Superintendent, because I would say I currently work with a population that brings things like this to our center, and what occurs is they're trying to do these things on their phones. So as we look at this 4-page lengthy, not lengthy, but it's got a lot of information. I would, as a person that provides services to people that would be filling this out, it'd be very challenging to do this on a phone. And we have a lot of families that do have internet, but it usually is on a phone. So just wanted to throw that out there. It makes it very difficult, especially for organizations that provide translation services and things like that. It could be pretty cumbersome. So thank you for saying that.
Thank you, and imagine the current scenario where they have to do that 6 times for each of the providers on multi-page applications. So this is definitely a step in the right direction. We're so pleased with the partnerships, the city being one of those. Thank you.
Anything else on that particular item? Okay. There's Kate, thank you. Let's see. Were there other questions? Mr. Paretti, I'm sorry.
These last 2 years have been really great, especially for us new members, especially with the work the superintendent has done and what we've been able to do as a board, how we've been able to create new policies and the way that we govern and the way that we do the work as a board. I wouldn't give it up for anything with all of our colleagues, whether it's our finance committee, whether it's innovation and reform, whether it's the policy review, and the listening tour. This board has been engaged and really raised the bar on what it means to govern a school district, and I could just hang my hat on that every day. We have a very busy new year coming up, and with that said, I just want to say that I'll be voting no on issue 9.1. And I really think that with everything that we have done, we're getting into annual budgets that the board has to review that start in January. We have an ad hoc committee. We have a new board member and new leadership coming in that will change with the vice president leaving and how we reorganize. There's a lot of things to do. This board also has to get together with itself in January. And I think that removing a full weekend from the first month of the year to attend the NSBA conference, which I know is important, I do think that I will be voting no on this piece of the legislation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Paretti. Other questions or comments? Ms. Hudson?
Thank you, President Baker. I will be joining Board Member Paretti and also voting no on 9.1. And I'll have to tell you, I was disappointed, A, to see this just on the consent agenda, and also just to see it come up yet again. I have tried to encourage that the board sit down and talk, that we talk about and we plan what we're doing. I have, when we came through with the budget process through earlier this year, the board's budget was set aside, and we set aside time for the board to talk and meet. And we have had retreat and retreat and retreat canceled. We have never talked about this. And fundamentally, the Finance Committee purposely did not address the board's budget because that's within our purview. And what this amounts to, well, a couple things. I think one is these trainings all seem to be just the same board members going. And nothing comes back to us as a unit, to us as an entire board. The other thing, and so, from an optics perspective, I look at the money that goes out and I think that could fund a science club. It could fund a number of band instruments. It could do a lot of things that we're not doing. And on the flip side, from my other experiences, I see like this board is a special board. This district is a special district. We're a large enterprise, over $1 billion. We interface with numerous levels of government right here in the capital city. We interface with a pretty special and diverse community. There's a lot that we could do as a group, as a board, as a whole, to do training, to do work together, to improve. And the few I've tried to attend, I've attended a couple of the OSBA conferences to test it out and see what's there, and I'll have to tell you, it might help the smaller districts. It's not for us. It's not serving us in a rich way. But I'll say, I feel like this is just, it's excess that where leadership at the district, at the management level is pulling back on travel. We have yet to talk about it. And I would like to encourage that this be pulled, and that before we do any additional board travel like this, we as a board at least talk about it. And we at least have some voice to it. Because right now, this is the only time I've had voice is here. And I've tried talking about it outside the meetings. I've tried to just vote no. I've tried to encourage us to do our budget. And nothing that we've yet to convene to talk about board travel and board training and our vision individually and collectively. I'm not suggesting that this is a bad conference, but I'm just suggesting that I feel like it hasn't been a group decision, and I'd like for this to be a team effort. And so I will vote no on this, but I'd ask all of you to also join Board Member Paretti and I in voting no on this until we set our leadership priorities for 2016. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hudson. Are there other comments or questions related to that particular piece of legislation? Okay. Oh, Ms. Gibbs. Yes, ma'am.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. And just to a couple of the things that you said and to your point about the FRN, the Federal Relations Network Advocacy is an appointment that is given by OSBA for one board member to serve a 2-year term to work with other policymakers across the country to advocate for policies on a federal level that are impacting us at a local, at the local standpoint. We work with other people, and this year we'll be working with Bexley school board members to not only lobby our congressional delegations, which consists of Senator Sherrod Brown, Senator Robert Portman, and Congresswoman Joyce Beatty, but we also talk about the policies we need to really get our boards moving and how we move forward and understanding the federal legislation. And so that is a long-standing program of OSBA. It is a rotating seat. and many members of this board, you serve for 2 years and then it goes to someone else. To the point of having an opportunity to speak and about retreats and training, that's two different things as opposed to going to conferences. What we need to do to schedule board retreats and training, I agree we need to get them on the books, but I take exception to the idea that there's nothing at the OSBA conference, because this year we presented zero-based budgeting to the conference. And I believe we don't want to think that people sat in our conference and our workshop and we were the only people that brought value to it. There were many workshops and there's many trainings that we go to, and they're not all, I agree with you, not all in Ohio School Board Association. When you work with the Council of Great City Schools, you work with the largest urban districts, and that is policy work with people who have large urban districts. So no, maybe Pike County or Waverly couldn't understand the 4 million breakfasts, but when you talk to Houston and Dallas and Miami, they do. And we talk to them, what are the best strategies to increase efficiency? And I'm so proud of the presentation that Mr. Joe Brown did, because a few years ago, that was not the story in food service. We were running in the red, and they have turned that around. They have attended training. We have put policies in forth to get out of their way and to support them and to get them to support their need. So I understand where we may not see the value, but if you come to innovation and reform, you will see that we brought back thing-based schools from Nashville. We're entertaining expanded programmings that we heard in Miami about the girls' school and the boys' school and gender-based. So that information is coming back. You hear a part of it in maybe the committees you're in, but the work that we bring back from those conferences that I attend, in addition to the workshops, they all show up in innovation and reform and in every other value and idea and policy creation that comes to the board. So I understand and I respect your value for it, but I'm going to offer that take the time to learn. Boards that don't train and develop don't develop. And you have to constantly stay on the cutting edge of what is coming, how you navigate a large urban district, and all the answers are not in Columbus, Ohio.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments on that particular? Yes, Mr. Cole.
Just one very quick one. I just want to echo what my colleague just stated, and just take it just to its most small denominator. I participated in the OSBA conference where I watched my board colleague and some other of our leading staff, including our treasurer, sit on a panel and articulate to a group of state leaders in education what we're doing with our budget, how we are looking at value-based budgeting and changing how we not only think about what we're funding, but how we behave culturally as a district when it comes to our fiduciary matters and responsibilities. I had the privilege of going to Long Beach, California, where I watched our staff talk to a national group of leaders in education about our gains in third grade reading guarantee, our gains, how we were able to overstand the barriers of education by strong community outreach and engagement, things that we have brought back from these conferences and actually utilize and put into action or share best practices with other organizations. This is what I've come to learn throughout this entire journey, and just the 2 years I've been here, is that we're all in the same fight together, whether it's California, whether it's Washington State, whether it's Ohio, New York, California, well, Florida, wherever. We're all in the same fight together. And more importantly, there's something to be learned and gained from our experiences collaboratively. I constantly encourage the opportunity to learn and see beyond where we are now, because if you can't see clearly what your future is, and you can't strategically plan. What I will support both of my colleagues on either side of this table is the fact that there is an important factor here that is communication. We do need to communicate. We absolutely do. And I totally advocate it. I know that there have been calendar issues in the past that you know, and one of them was even a startling health issue at one point that prevented us from convening some of these retreats. So I think that 2016 is an opportunity that we'll take to look forward together and work harder together to make this district the best place that we can be for our children and for our staff and for this community. But I'm going to vote yes for this because I believe that we need to learn, we need to be advocates, we need to grow, and we need to strengthen our connection with our federal and state leaders who make decisions every day that impact us, every day. We've had 2 omnibus changes in our policies because of federal decisions and state decisions that we have to align our policies to. So there's a need to know what's going on and to not miss that at the table. So I spoke a little too long, but
Thank you, Mr. Cole.
thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments on this particular piece of legislation? Mr. Paretti?
Clarify, this isn't about, I'm not talking about the quality of going to conferences. We just don't have enough time in this next year. That's how important next year is, especially with the ad hoc facilities committee and the processes that we're getting ready to go into, deadlines associated with school facilities commission, in the annual budget. I mean, it's January. It's the point that it's hard for us to get together. We have to prioritize our time. This is not an attack. I voted for conferences and I voted against conferences. And really, it's always an issue, it seems like. But I really just don't understand why January is just so important. I just really stress that. We're just getting into a lot of things, and you know, we really got to make sure that we're using our time wisely with each other. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Paretti. Ms. Hudson?
Thank you, President Baker. Well, likewise, I'm not suggesting that this is only a Four Corners of Columbus issue, but what I heard Board Member Gibbs say is that, you know, this is an opportunity for her to go, but yet this is Board Member Gibbs and President Baker going. You know, there have been opportunities for some board members to go to things, but those have not been extended to all board members. There hasn't been planning to discuss going to conferences or what kind of training for all board members other than the OSBA local conferences. And, you know, to me, it smacks of patronage. And I, for one, I am opposed to that, and until we have a discussion and we plan our work for the year, I will continue to oppose this because I think we, as a board, we're not doing any planning, and this is, we're doing our work via these, you know, separate caucuses of members. It's important we all work together, all 7 of us, on all of these issues. And so I'd like to ask that we put this, if anything, amend this to send Board Member Gibbs to fulfill our OSBA obligations. I'm not opposed to that, but I do think it's important that that we commit that we are going to, as a group, and with our new membership next year, that we are going to regularly talk and we're going to regularly plan, because this ad hoc process is, I think it's irresponsible, and it's an irresponsible use of district funds.
Yes, Ms. Gibbs?
Sure, thank you. And thank you for recognizing me, Board President Baker. The idea of it being smacked with patronage is very inaccurate and could be borderline offensive if it hit me that way, but it doesn't. Our board liaison, Mr. J.C. Benton, just for accuracy, sent the list of all of the board development opportunities available to any school board member. The National School Board Association, the Council of Great City Schools, the Council of Urban Boards of Education, and the American School Journal all mail and send us mail individually to our individual email addresses as well as to our homes. Any board member has always ever been able to attend any conference they so choose. That is not true if you would like to attend, but you've already expressed that you do not, Board Member Hudson, with all due respect. You could be open to go to any of these. FRN is an appointment, and next year that is open to ever. So I appreciate us fulfilling that obligation, but I don't want us to have an inaccurate statement that says only certain board members go. Board members that are all astute can make great decisions, and working together means that we don't use very divisive issues. We rather work through them and then say, how do we work best together on issues that affect our district in everyday life? It has nothing to do with patronage. It has to do with, do you want to learn? Do you want to get better? Where do you want to get more information as a board member? And do you have the time to go? And time management is up to each and every board member. This is not a paid position. Most of us have full-time jobs. Most of us might even have 2. And if you're a parent, add 1 more. So there's 31 days in January, minus 4, that's 1 person. We live in an electronic age. Work can go on no matter where we are and what we do. So that's not the issue. So the point is we have a lot to do, and we are best served with everyone who is hitting on all 6 cylinders, and you have not just what you know now, but the best in the worldwide knowledge of everything that's possible and understanding of the policies that we need to make it happen. So 1 person going away does not stop 7 people from working very hard on behalf of this district. And so I hope that we're able to move through January with little or no snow days, and because this whole thing could get snowed out, but that we're able to stay focused on the issue at hand. If it's a challenge with scheduling, everyone clear their schedules. If it's a challenge with working together, agree to work together. If we're going to talk about these issues, I agree with you, Board Member Hudson, let's talk about them, but let's not mix apples and oranges, and let's not throw low blows where they're not needed. Thank you.
I just have to say, I have never received anything at my home, ever. We got J.C. Benton's email about various conferences, like a week or 2 ago. Prior to that time, no, I have not ever seen anything about any of these conferences. But most importantly, if they were scheduled ahead of time, if we knew, it's about the board sitting down and talking about who's going to go, what do we want to cover, what do we want to get out of it, what are our goals? And so that's why if it hasn't come across my desk, my mailbox, I have sought training. I've done board training this year. I've attended audit committee training this year. I agree, and I am in a profession where you have to continue to train. I am not opposed to training, but I do think we need to do this in a coordinated fashion. And this is the tip of the iceberg in terms of board coordination. But I think we continue to do this as if, it's a right. And I really, it goes way back, this year goes back to the budget discussions where the board, all we had left was the board, and we've canceled and canceled and canceled. And all that does, it takes away the voice of all the board members. And so that's why I asked, I'm tired of not having a voice on this, and I'm tired of our board not having voice in how we move ahead. And so that's, I think this represents that lack of voice and that we have experienced through the year.
Thank you. All right, any other comments on any items in the consent agenda this evening? Okay, all right. Ms. Reyes?
Thank you, Board Member Baker. So I think there was a proposal to consider as a board sending 1 member to the event. Now, I'm a person that was the representative for FRN. And I don't think I think with your last statement, Board Member Hudson, you stated that it is essential for us to get education and go out as a person that has brought back information and has implemented programs with the help of the staff here in the district. I definitely support going to these functions. Obviously, OSBA, to your point, we're the largest district in Ohio. We have to go other places. We have to hear from other districts, from other locations. And yes, we have not had an opportunity to meet as a board, but to our schedule, we met, about at least 40, 50 times on policy? So tell us, when you're prioritizing what you're doing, I think meeting and getting our policies enacted and getting that together and some of the other items that were on our docket, we're kind of trying to prioritize. So I think as a board member, we need to commit to make sure that we do meet and talk about the issues that are impacting all of us. But I think there is a consideration if we send one board member. But if not, I agree that this is a conference that I've attended, and it does give us access to legislation and federal rules that impact our district. And this is the only conference throughout the whole year that does that, so.
All right. Hearing nothing further? Mr. Treasurer, please.
Mr. Cole?
Yes.
Ms. Gibbs?
Yes.
Ms. Hudson?
Yes, except I'm voting no on 9.1.
Mr. Paretti?
Yes, voting no on 9.1.
Ms. Reyes?
Yes.
President Baker?
Yes.
The motion carries.
Much. Let's move on then to board announcements. And before we do, I want to recognize Professor Rita Bova, who is here tonight with the External Monitoring Committee. Raise your hand if you don't mind. Thank you very much for being here this evening. It's a thankless task, so let's give her a round of applause. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Any board members have anything they'd like to share? Any points of pride you might like to talk about from the district? Ms. Gibbs?
Sure. Just two announcements. First, a big thank you to Dr. Stanford and the team and Dr. Good. Our innovation and reform page is up. All of our submission buttons are on. And so if you have an idea for an innovative idea or reform in academics, policy, or operations, you can now submit that via email via our webpage, and we're glad that that is up. Our next meeting is Tuesday, December 8th. We'll be meeting at the Columbus Downtown High School, and our focus is on our specialty high schools, and that meeting is open to the public. And I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge that 60 years ago today, a very meek but strong woman refused to give up her seat. So if everybody sit up straight in your seat really quick. Everyone sit up straight. Lean up and sit tall, and let us all remember the day that Rosa Parks refused to move to the back of the bus. And because of what she did, we can sit where we want to in this room right now. Because she didn't give up her seat, I can sit in this seat right now. And because of what she did, public education, transportation, access, equity, and equality in America was forever changed because she said no. And so while we all place some very strong values on what we agree to, it was what she didn't accept that has made our world a better place. So I really thank her and all of those who fought for equality and freedom. Give her a round of applause. Give her a round.
Thank you, Ms. Gibbs. Board Member Cole?
I just wanted to give kudos to our PTOs throughout the district that are representing the spirit of CCS. At Indianola, they had a recent dance there where the students really gathered and had a good time, as well as Columbus North International School. These are students who are leading the charge in bringing other students together and creating opportunities for them to exchange ideas and just have a little fun. But they're also doing it in partnership with PTOs and PTAs that are helping them raise needed funds, that are helping them provide other resources for things that they need in their building. So I just wanted to acknowledge their efforts, not just at those 2 schools, but throughout our district.
Thank you, Mr. Cole. Ms. Reyes?
I know this happened a little bit ago, but at East High School on the 24th, we were honored to attend as board members the honor roll call for the 9th and 10th grade biomedical school. So that was my first white coat ceremony, and I think the biggest lesson that we talk about often, and it was mentioned by many of the speakers, it was mentioned by the principal, it was mentioned even by our students. They talked a lot about having that parent involvement, that adult in their life that helped them get onto the right path. And the right path did not mean the right path for the parent, it meant the right path for the child. The young man talked about how I think he said, I really messed up, I was really not doing the right things. But now he's made the decision to go down the right path. He's going to go to college. He's going to be doing the things. So I really appreciated not only the impact that I believe it's 26 students that got their white coat that day. The majority of the parents took the time to come out, help put on those white coats, get those students started to a possible future doctor. If not, at the end of the day, a professional, an educator, and a citizen in our global economy as our mission states. So it was invigorating to see that participation from our parents. I also didn't want the time to pass. I don't know if many of you caught it, but as we were talking about our Chromebooks, the question about the LADE participation. I don't know if many people caught the 20%. You know, a lot of times we talk about we need to get together and create a committee, and we need to do this, and we need to do that. And I want to thank our district and our administration for going out and making sure that we are capturing LADE. That 20% is not a mistake. They are being very diligent, going out and ensuring that our purchases, our contracts, the items that we're bringing into this school do have that LADE representation. So wanted to give kudos to our staff on that.
Thank you, Board Member Reyes. Board Member Hudson.
Thank you, President Baker. So Thursday, 3:30, we will have audit and accountability up in the cabinet room, and that will be our last meeting for the year. The Finance and Appropriations Committee meeting on the 10th. I think we mentioned this at the last meeting that we'll need to reschedule that, and I'll have to work with the treasurer. We did not close that loop before the holiday. So those are my 2 announcements.
Thank you very much. Any other announcements from board members this evening? I do want to remind you that we may have a special meeting on Monday to contemplate the agreement in principle. Please let Mr. Benton know if you are available on Monday for us to meet to consider that. And if there's nothing else, I will ask Ms. Gibbs to offer a motion.
Thank you. Mr. President, I move that the Board of Education recess into executive session per Section 12122 G1 Ohio Revised Code to consider the employment or compensation of a public employee.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Mr. Treasurer?
Ms. Gibbs?
Yes.
Ms. Hudson?
Yes.
Mr. Paretti?
Yes.
Ms. Reyes?
Yes.
President Baker?
Yes.
Mr. Cole?
Yes.
That motion carried.
Thank you. The Board of Education will now recess into executive session. We will not return to this chamber this evening. Have a good night. Thank you for being here.